Let's begin our look now into Ableton Live's browsers, and we'll start with the device browser. To get to any browser, you simply click on its icon over here, and the top one is the device browser. You can notice that when I click on this rectangular box looking device, we see it says Live's Devices. In any of these browsers, including the plugin and the 3 generic file browsers, to close a list up, all you have to do is simply double click and we're back to the starting point. Now we're going to start out with the instruments that come with Ableton Live. We have the drum rack, the impulse, and the simpler. You also have a device called the external instrument for incorporating other devices outside your computer into Ableton Live. Then we have the instrument rack, which allows us to create complete setups using any synthesizers and other devices in combination with any of the audio effects and MIDI effects that may be in place, so you can create a complete rig configuration and store it. Then below that we see the operator and the sampler, which are 2 additional modules which can be activated for an additional price. Also there's the EIC, the Essential Instrument Collection, which is around also. Let's start out with the simplest one, the impulse. And I'm going to dig in, simply revealing folders by clicking on the triangle, going inside acoustic. And the impulse is a basic drum machine. Let's pull one out. And if you drop it in this open area out here, a track will automatically be created for that. Then delete these other 2 tracks by selecting and hitting my big delete key. And here we see the impulse. The impulse is a basic drum kit. And it has 8 sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they correspond to the C scale on your keyboard, C3, D, E, F, G, A, B, C4. And each one of these drums has its own playback button, a mute or solo button. And if you look down here in the parameters, you'll also see a corresponding mute and solo button. Now this is consistent with the solo button being the blue box, and the solo button here is also colored blue, so that might help you remember that. Alright, so what we can do is create a basic pattern with this impulse drum kit, and then we can solo. So if we want to hear just what the kick sounds like, we have basic parameters across here for changing that sound. Come out of solo mode and we'll hear the snare, snare 2, going to my keyboard. These sounds usually are velocity sensitive, which means as I hit my key harder, we can see it increase. On all Live's devices, if they're being MIDI controlled, as you see this meter go up, that's being controlled to a higher velocity, and the sound should respond accordingly. Double clicking again and coming back to instruments. So that's the impulse, and then the simpler is your basic synthesizer that plays back a waveform. Now I'm going to activate this hot swap and come in for a sound, going for a preset, and now when I play my keyboard, so in addition to pulling out a basic unit, you can also pull out a preset directly. So let's go back to simpler, choose a sound we like a string lead or a string machine, and pull it out. Now here indeed we do see simpler, but we also see down here in our device section that we also have some effects in place. As we look at these icons, if we see a single box such as this, that tells us that there's no instrument rack in play. When we see a split box like this, this tells us there are multiple devices, the split representing something like these lines between the different devices, and that preset uses the simpler in addition with some other items. Let's go back now and look to a basic simpler, and again you see that's true. Double clicking my browser, we also have MIDI effects, so we can pull in arpeggiators, add them to a track before it gets to the synthesizer. So I could pull out, say, a chord, plop, drop, and drag, turn this on, and now so each one I turn on simply by clicking and holding and increasing, then we get that effect in place. So I've got 5 steps, 5 keys on your keyboard or frets on your guitar, 12 and 9. So you can create up to 6 additional pitches to the one coming through, but anyway, that's using MIDI effects. And then your audio effects browser, you can get to these also. I'm going to scroll down to the end down here, grab a chorus, and drag it out, and drop. So we can add any of these devices to our tracks up here, our channels, simply by dragging them also. Releasing this there on the impulse, and now we see it added the auto pan before that. Again, I'll grab a MIDI effect, changing the note length, and put that on here, and we see it appears automatically for us in the proper place. So the flow should be MIDI, audio devices, audio effects. So you can get to any of these devices directly. If you want a generic one, grab the main one at the triangle top hierarchy. If you want to grab a preset or place it, just double click. And now we see this is in place with its own preset. To delete any of these, simply click on them, make them active on their title bar, and press your big delete key. Same thing is true for a MIDI device and the impulse or any sort of synth device, deleting again. Okay, so that's a quick way to get any of these instruments, MIDI effects, or audio effects directly into play on any track or channel. Okay, next we'll take a look at the plugin browser.